Recording in progress.
All right, welcome everyone. This is Dr. Dan Ritchie, and we're going to be doing the functional aging training model or exercise program designed for the 55 plus, maybe even 50 plus, and we'll talk about what an older adult means. So let's jump in here. Just a quick bit of background on myself. I've been in the industry over 25 years now. I got certified through NSCA, started out as a Division I strength coach, got Fall Proof certified, became an enhanced fitness master trainer. In 2014, I won the PFP Personal Trainer of the Year. I always like to give them a shout out and encourage you to subscribe to their magazine, which is now digital. And I've recently become the Chief Operating Officer of Marbles Brain Body Fitness, which is an exciting new brain gym franchise we're bringing to the world. So let's jump in. Cody and I founded the Functional Aging Institute a little over 10 years ago and basically have been proclaiming to the fitness world, anyone who will listen, the fitness industry, fitness trainers, fitness enthusiasts, aging adults, that we have collectively missed the mark. And what I mean by that is we really, as a fitness industry, have been so hyper-focused on weight loss, youth, vanity, sport performance, that we've really missed a huge opportunity to serve and train people as they age into their 40s, 50s, 60s, and decades beyond. And we're going to talk about that quite a bit today. What really fuels my passion is the concept that you're designing your future, right? And so these two women are both approximately 78 years old, but one clearly is enjoying life, while the other, I would say, is probably struggling to enjoy life. Now, I'm not saying you can't have high quality of life in a nursing home, but that's not really the life that we're aspiring to. And so we want to help people aspire to still be rocking out the swimsuit on the beach or the pool or wherever she happens to be. So think right now, which would you choose if you had to choose? Quality of life or quantity of life? Do you want to live to 100, but maybe the quality's not so great? Or you just live to 70, 75, but the quality is awesome all the way to the very end? I'll let you think about that for just a second. What if we could really increase the odds that you could do both, right? What if you could have really high quality of life to your very last day, whether that's 87 or 97? I think you would choose that. But the reality is, a lot of us are like, well, I don't want to live too long, right? I don't want to outlive my health. I don't want to outlive my brain. I don't want to outlive my physical independence. So I have to choose wisely. So really what we're talking about today, and we're going to go fast, maintaining your ability to do what you need to do, what you want to do, and what you really like to do. And you could describe that as enjoy doing, or even some of the things you dream yet to do, right? As late in life as possible. If you're still playing wiffle ball in the backyard in your 70s, if you're still hiking, traveling to Europe, doing whatever it is you want to do in your 80s, well, then you would want a few more years to do that, right? I'd like to take one last bucket list trip. So how do we do that? Is it walking? Is it strength training? Well, maybe it's power training. Maybe it's balance. Maybe it's yoga. You probably think you have the secret, right? Which one of these do you think is best? You can go ahead and vote, right? There's always somebody who's like, well, it's both. It's a trick question. It's not both. It's not one or the other. Neither of these are the best. So let's look at, right here, we're going to look at 93 research studies. 93 research studies. The research is overwhelmingly, just overwhelmingly clear. If we train older adults, 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds, 70-year-olds, 80-year-olds, even subjects in their 90s, they will improve. We do strength training, they get better at strength. Range of motion, better at range of motion. Aerobic capacity, better at VO2 max. Body comp, grandma can get six-pack abs, right, if she wants to. The results on whatever the impairment is, very, very strong. However, very inconsistent and weak and inconclusive, translating that to function and disability. So at the end of the day, it's like, well, wait a minute. People are still having trouble climbing stairs. They're still having trouble moving. They're still having trouble picking stuff up off the floor. We look at 62 research studies here on the right of the screen progressive resistance training with people over the age of 60, we know they will get stronger. Sure enough, large positive effect on muscular strength. Strength gains do not equate to similar functional gains, right? In fact, I think the researchers were like, what? How's this? How are they getting 50% stronger, but only 5% more functional, or 10%? In fact, no evidence of an effect was found for physical disability. So I'm not telling you strength is not related to physical disability. What I'm telling you is the research is overwhelmingly clear. People will get dramatically stronger, not necessarily dramatically more functional. So let's dig in. What does that mean? How's that even possible? Dig in a little bit deeper into 15 more studies. And this is where it gets tricky, right? If we throw in another variable, I can't really tell you, right? We know from the 62 prior studies, progressive resistance training gets people stronger, doesn't have an impact on falls prevention, doesn't have an impact on function, no conclusion for disability. Here they added cardio and balance training. Finally, we're seeing a positive effect on falls prevention. Unfortunately, I can't tell you whether it's balance training or cardio. I would only have to hypothesize. My guess is it's probably balance training, but we really don't know. So when we add more variables, we start to see greater impacts. This led Cody and I to develop what we have trademarked as the functional aging training model through the Functional Aging Institute. At this point in 2011, we'd trained about 1,000 clients at our training studio. We had finished our PhDs. And what we realized was these researchers, I think they really wanted to say exercise, what is it good for older adults, right? But they realized they'd get slaughtered in academia for that. So they said necessary, but not sufficient. What they really meant was, but not any good at improving function or preventing disability, right? In fact, they said, there's effects on strength, there's effects on pain and function, but they're really modest at best when it comes to minimizing disability. At the end of the day, right, if you're still like, well, I don't know if I want to live to 90 if I have to wind up with a walker or a wheelchair, right? They said effective interventions for minimizing disability are scarce and novel approaches are needed. Their conclusion was basically like, we've spent almost a decade now looking at every aspect of exercise, and we cannot figure out what the approach is to minimize disability with aging. Well, Cody and I had a pretty good hunch. The model we'd been developing with our clients based on our PhD research was the approach that was needed, and so we launched a whole company based around that. So we're going to look at that. Rickley and Jones in '97 revised the NAGI model. Originally, the NAGI model only had disease or pathology, right? You get arthritis, that leads to an impairment, right? You have cardiovascular disease, that leads to decreased VO2 max. You have high blood pressure. Rickley and Jones says, wait a minute, there's a lifestyle and inactivity piece here that's very interactive with that, right? You get arthritis in your knees and all of a sudden you get less active, right? You're like, oh, if I move less, my knees hurt less. And then that becomes a vicious cycle. Your arthritis gets worse. And then when you move, your knees really hurt. Now you've got impairments, right? You can't climb stairs. You can't go for hikes. Those impairments lead to functional limitations. Eventually you get to the point where you're just like, I can't walk a mile. I can't climb stairs. I can't do a lot of things I need to do, right? I can't carry 40-pound bags of salt. Eventually that can lead to actual disabilities, right? And disability does not mean you're in a wheelchair or you're chair-bound. Disability can be, I can't open a jar, I can't button a button, I can't put a shirt on, I can't fasten a bra, I can't zip a zipper, I can't climb a step, right? There's lots of levels of disability. And then of course there's psychological and even social disability, right? I'm afraid to go out at night, right? How do we measure that? I'm afraid to go to the grocery store. Someone might knock me down, right? So there's a lot of variables to disability. So what impairment level factors are vital for function, right? If we're isolating on impairments, let's look at all of them, right? And there's a massive list. We've developed a huge chart. We'll look at the visual here in a second. When we go back and we think about those research studies, what was so helpful for us was like, hey, if you train strength, and guess what? Most of those research studies were concentric, machine-based strength movements. If you train that, it gets dramatically better. But what we realize is that's only one impairment factor: contractile velocity, speed, power, endurance, flexibility, joint range of motion, coordination, reaction time, and so many more, right? Motor control, proprioception, somatosensation, my sense of touch, my vestibular control, right? What is my inner ear telling me? Am I falling forward? Am I leaning to the right? Am I about to fall out of my chair? vision, mobility, agility, balance, we start to realize, the person who wants to function really well is standing in the center of this chart saying, I just want to be able to move better, carry things, carry my groceries in, walk the dog, climb stairs, do my laundry. And we put them on a seated chest press, a seated leg press, a seated leg extension, all these seated strength movements. And you look over in the corner and you're like, well, strength is one small piece of this giant honeycomb model. This is what we call the 6 domains of human function. And you realize improving strength 50, 60, even 80%, probably going to have a small impact on total function if we don't train coordination and proprioception and balance and mobility and even the cognitive, right? I got to be confident to even use my new strength, right? I mean, if I'm not confident in how I move because my coordination, my reaction time is poor, my neuromuscular function's poor, probably doesn't even matter that I've gotten that much stronger on a leg press, right? I have to translate it to life. And of course, this model gets even deeper and more complex, right? Look how complex balance is. And honestly, when you look at strength, isolate that out, most of the research is done on concentric movements. There's nothing wrong with that. We have to pick what we want to study, right? But concentric movements on machines, so not that functional when we think about task-specific things. And then we go to measure someone, how you doing getting out of a chair, climbing stairs, picking something up from the floor. We haven't trained you for any of those variables, right? We've done concentric strength only. We got to be doing isometric strength and eccentric strength and muscular endurance and joint integrity and speed and power. And of course, all the neuromuscular balance and mobility. There's so many variables. It's really a lot more complex, right? The confusing part is we look at research, and I just gave you over 100 research studies, and here's another one, right? We look at research and we average or generalize, right? Muscle strength declines 30% on average from age 50 to 70. That has led to, and this study is over 20 years old, back to 1999, good study. That has led to us believing, well, if we just get people stronger from age 50 to 70, maybe we'll solve all their problems. But guess what also is declining, right? Balance, reaction time, speed, power, agility, coordination, all these other variables. And there's so much variability with individual. If you look at this scatter plot, I've always said, I'm guessing it's a male because this is appendicular muscle mass. So it's your legs and your arms, right? Your appendix, your limbs. There's a person there plotted at the very, very top. They have the most muscle mass in the room by a lot. My guess is even if they decline at 30%, they're still going to be on average one of the strongest people in the room. So strength isn't going to be their issue. It's probably going to be reaction time, balance, agility, coordination. But we got a 72, 73-year-old that's at the bottom of the chart who probably already can't get out of a chair, right? So there's this huge variability between individuals. Even though we can draw this line with statistics, individuals, right, aren't the line. They have their own specific issue. So we always have to keep that in mind in terms of research. For some people, strength is going to be one of their number one factors. For others, it's going to be much less. This is why we see this massive range of function in individuals. And I want this to be the biggest takeaway of this session for you. The reality is we're all designing through our adult life and as we enter older age, and older age for some begins at 50 and for others it begins at 65. We're designing our future, right? You really have a choice to live on this blue line or to slip towards that orange line, right? Why do we know people that are old at 70 and other people that are 75 that are competing in track and field and softball tournaments, still playing golf every day? And we're like, man, I can't wait to grow up and be 75 and live their life, right? And we see this huge range, right? My grandmother at 80 years old went to Pakistan to teach English as a second language. The thought of her age was never in consideration, right? She had the functional ability to go do it. She wanted to go serve people. She was living life on the blue line, and she lived on that blue line till she was 99 years old. And we were all shocked that she didn't make it to 100, right? Never occurred to us for her to cross disability thresholds and move into a nursing home or any of those sorts of things. And so there's this huge variability. We want to help people live on the blue line or as close to it as possible so they can live life on their own terms to their very last days. So why does traditional exercise typically fail older adults? Why have we seen it fail consistently over the years? Why has it not really dramatically impacted function? There's a couple things to consider here. Our four cornerstones. So I'll let you into the functional aging training model here. Quick peek. In-depth understanding of the aging process. This is not a course where we're like, hey, to be 60 doesn't matter. 60 is the new 40 and 70 is the new 50. No. 70 is 70. I shouldn't train a 70-year-old like they're 20 any more than I'd train a 17-year-old like they're 50, right? If I start training NFL athletes in their 20s like they're 90 years old, there's a disconnect, right? Recognition of the desires, goals, and aspirations that accompany the third age. Your goals for fitness, lifestyle, health, wellness change in your 60s, 70s, and 80s. They're just different. And I, as a fitness professional, have to recognize that, right? I, even as an individual, right? Just you listening to this in your 60s have to go, you know what? Maybe I don't need six-pack abs anymore. Maybe I don't have to lose those last 10 pounds. But you know what's more important? I got to be able to carry my toddler grandchildren. I got to be able to travel. I got to be able to, whatever it is you enjoy doing, right? A strong belief that people can be fit, healthy, vibrant, and functional at any age. At any age. Now, don't be, a smarty and be like, well, 147, you got to be alive, right? So there are fit, vibrant, healthy people in their hundreds. An approach to exercise that's grounded in evidence and honed with experience. Now, I tried to give you over 100 research studies. You go into our program, there's a ton of evidence. And of course, you have to hone that with your own experience. Two big pillars. The principle of specificity, we learned right away. If you strength train older adults, guess what? They get dramatically stronger. If you do range of motion, their range of motion gets better. Their VO2 max gets better. Their body comp gets better. So maybe if we want them to get better at getting down on the floor, we train that. Maybe if they want to get better at climbing stairs, we train that. Maybe if we want them to get better at carrying a laundry basket up and down stairs, we train that. How you train is how you gain. And then the scary one, progressive overload. But Dr. Dan, you don't mean overload. 90-year-olds, only if you want them to get better. Only if you want them to get better. So yes, we have to have a stimulus. Now, I'm not going to overload at the same progression of intensity a 90-year-old like I might a 9-year-old or a 19-year-old, but I have to have a stimulus to progress. So whether you're 80, 90, or 100, we got to be stimulating further improvement. And then our 7 key principles: be purposeful in all aspects of your training. Don't throw exercises away. Don't throw them in. Don't be like, oh, this one was fun with Joan, so I'm going to do it with Bob. What's the purpose for the client? Try to get off machines, right? So we don't throw them out. We don't say, hey, those research studies were bad because they used a leg press or chest press. No, they weren't bad. What they taught us was whatever you train will get dramatically better. Let's just get more primary movements on our feet, right? More primary movements in functional. So machines and isolation type movements are complementary, not primary. We want to do as many exercise movements standing as possible, right? So only do things seated when it serves a purpose, right? That's our fancy way of saying get people on their feet, get them on their hands and knees, get them on the floor, get them on their tummies, get them on their back, right? Put them in all real life positions. And let's be honest, most of us, I've gone 18 whole minutes here. I haven't fallen out of my chair yet. Most of us aren't falling out of chairs, right? We're not having trouble with sitting. We're having trouble with moving. Maximize client safety and success. If you know someone's at risk for a fall, the last thing you want to do is put them at risk for falling in your training, right? If you know you are at risk for a fall, don't go do something high risk when you begin an exercise program. Gradually progress, right? Gradually progress. So there's what we call a hierarchy of functional aging. Now, if you're listening to this right now and you're thinking, man, I don't know if I really want to train older adults, I'm going to tell you, you should. Because it's a massive opportunity. There's so many people in their 50s, 60s, and 70s that need your help. And the vast majority of them are hanging out in this higher independent and lower independent category. And if you can move them one notch up, right? If you can move them from lower independent to higher independent, you're going to change their life moving forward for several years. There's no doubt, right? They're going to be around for a whole lot more holidays because that lower independent, I think the woman's a great snapshot here, right? A lot of grandmothers still hosting Thanksgiving and Christmas, and then the next year they're gone. We're like, what happened? Grandma was doing so well. Well, she got sick, And then she lost her balance and she fell and broke her hip. And 6 months later, she passes away. And none of us really paid close enough attention to how she was slipping into this lower independent category. And when she had a major health crisis, she couldn't recover from it. She wound up frail, dependent, and then passed away, right? We got to move people out of the lower independent up into the higher independent category. I know if you're in the semi-fit category, my dad is 76 years old. He's in the fully fit category. If for some reason he fell and broke his hip, he would recover from that, right? He wouldn't wind up in a nursing home. But you've got to be in those higher levels. So there's a huge, huge opportunity here. The vast majority of older adults you're going to work with are going to be in this higher independent and lower independent category. That's where the vast majority of them are. There's a small percentage in the semi-fit, a small percentage in the pre-frail, and really the other 4 categories we don't see very much of. So I'm going to give you a few techniques, a few ideas. If you want to learn more, you can certainly come follow us on YouTube or check out some of our programs. You got to start using every stance and start position, right? Try to get off of machines, right? So all sorts of standing positions, from shoulder width to wide to narrow to side by side to tandem to inline, you name it. And then they're seated at the very end of the list. So you can still use it. It's one of many options you have. Arm movements, do them all. Again, a lot of the research was bilateral machine based, right? We got to do unilateral, alternating, reciprocating in all directions, right? If I got to move something from here to here, I got to be able to move in multi directions, right? So cables are great, medicine balls are great, dumbbells, things you can move in all sorts of directions. Here's just some simple ideas for you, right? Rows don't have to be bent over with a dumbbell or on a machine, right? You can do them standing, you can do them half kneeling, you can do them kneeling. Again, this is where resistance bands or cable columns come in great. Don't just do 2-arm, do 1-arm as well. Same with chest press. Pull downs, standing, half kneeling, kneeling. Use all these different positions to challenge people in different ways. Shoulder press, probably going to be using dumbbells, kettlebells, or medicine balls, but again, standing, half kneeling, kneeling. Now, some of these you can, as a supplement, use a machine and do some seated, but for the most part, let's try to get people standing or kneeling as much as we can, because that's what we have to do in real life. Chops and lifts, I love cables, I love core ball. Core ball is a handled medicine ball. Weights with handles on them are nice. Kettlebells can be used. So many different chopping and lifting sequences. We have to be thinking about picking something up on the floor and putting it up on a shelf, or taking something off a shelf and putting it down at our waist, or I got to move something from the kitchen counter to the kitchen sink, right? How do I do that? Move, rotate, turn, twist, all of those weight transfers. We got to be training those things. And then the lower body movements, right? Lunging and squatting. We got to be doing all of these things too, in all sorts of variations, all sorts of stances. Again, we can do this with and without weight. We can do it dynamically, stationary, do all of it. As we get more advanced or more comfortable, we got to be training power. The biggest thing Cody and I have seen is power training has a far bigger impact than strength training, because we're training both strength and speed now, right? And in a lot of cases, we're getting a reaction time or neuromuscular piece, right? Takes a little bit more agility. So we're like, I don't know, frail clients, lower independent? Sure, they got to get out of a chair fast. Power stands, get up quick. Step ups, climbing stairs. I mean, these aren't complicated exercises. Get up and go. So you got a chair and you're just going to get up and go from it about 10 feet. Chair drills where you're going from one chair to another, transfers from one chair to another, red light, green light game. Most everybody has played this, right? It's just a start and stop game. Again, power, speed. Simple stuff for frail to lower independent. The independent, probably higher independent to semi-fit, or what we call average fitness. Now we can get into jumping and line hopping and short sprinting even. What time is it game? You're standing on a clock and you're stepping fast from one time to another, and even jumping jacks. Jumping jacks are great for power, right? Anything jumping means we have to have power involved. And then we get into the fit and the athletic, right? Our semi-fit to fully fit clients, and you can do plyometrics and, box jumps and medicine ball throws and power punching and power rows, moving with speed and intention. Hang cleans I love with dumbbells and kettlebells. push presses as well. I'm not as big a fan with barbells, but you certainly can do them. And we certainly see people at older years doing those things. Fall Proof has taught us so much about balance and mobility. You start to see, hey, if we put in some power, we put in some strength, we put in some balance and mobility, all of a sudden we're going to start impacting the total functional ability, right? So some exercises for balance and mobility training: straight leg walking, marching, straight leg marching, inline marching, cross over. So instead of walking a straight line, you're crossing over that line, almost zigzagging. Backwards walking, people don't like that as they get older. Walking or marching with a pause. The dog peeing on a bush, right? That's hiking your leg up, right? So you can relieve yourself. They'll ask you to demonstrate that several times. Can you show us that dog peeing on a hydrant again? Obstacle negotiations: stepping over a sleeping dog, stepping over a parking block, stepping over a cone, stepping, all the different step things you can do: step ups, step downs, step swing throughs, step over things. You got to be doing all of that stuff, right? I hate to tell people this, but the parking block in the parking lot didn't trip you. It didn't move. It had no, devious thought about getting you, right? It was just sitting there, and it's been sitting there for years. You just didn't step over it. In a lot of cases, people are like, oh, I stepped over it with my front leg, but my back leg got caught on it. It's like, well, because you didn't step over with both feet. So we have to practice all the obstacle negotiations that life throws at us. All right, I'm going to finish up quick here. You can have access to all these different little exercises. I know sometimes people are like, oh man, I do too much strength training. I got to get some more stuff in. Or I only teach a balance class. Well, you got to get more diversity in, right? Here's 5 minutes of posture. Here's a plank series. Well, we're going to get them down on the floor to do some planks, right? Floor work, core work. Here's 6 minutes of balance fun, right? If you do too much strength, throw in 6 minutes of balance. I think your clients will love it. And they'll be like, oh man, that really helped, right? It's going to help them integrate the strength you've been teaching them, right? Here's 6 minutes of gait and agility exercises. And now you might be saying, oh, I do too much balance or too much seated. Here's 6 minutes of strength training, right? Walking lunges and bent over rows and dumbbell deadlifts, all kinds of things you can be doing in just 6 minutes. Couple different workouts I threw in. These are yours to use. I like to keep it simple. Normally when we do demonstrations, all we have to use are resistance bands and dumbbells. So this workout here is designed for about 17 minutes of work. Now, it's level 2, so we're thinking kind of that lower to higher independent, right? This isn't a frail person. 17 minutes of work. We know there's going to be some setup time, some rest time, some rotation time. It's probably going to take 30 minutes to get through this training session, right? So you got 3 exercises, repeat them. Another 3 exercises, repeat them. Another 3, repeat them. Another 2, repeat them, right? So you got a total of 11 exercises, and you're going to do them all twice. So 22 exercises. That's a lot. You can certainly get that done in 17 to 20 minutes, but you're going to have rest, and I need to use the restroom, or I got to get some, have them get water. Don't throw in 30 minutes of exercises and expect you're going to get through that in 30 minutes. You're not. You got to expect rotations and, time between exercises, and let people catch their breath and all of that. So level 3 workout, a little bit more complex exercises, a little bit less rest. Still only 16 minutes worth of time here. 14 total exercises. Again, you can do all of this with a resistance band and a dumbbell. All right. Really a pleasure to teach you guys. I hope that was informative. If you want to grab my free book, which is this book right here, it was sitting behind me on my desk. You'll get the PDF immediately. If you really want one shipped to you, we can figure that out. I think you have to go to Amazon to actually buy it, the physical copy, but you can get the PDF totally for free right there at the link. So that is all I've got for you today. This was a blast. I hope you got a lot out of it. If you want to learn any more about me, I don't think I've got my website on here. But they'll have links where you can check out some of our courses and other things. So thanks so much, everyone.